Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the DC Capstone Report. On this week's podcast, in the first segment, we're going to take a look and review the Texas A&M game that Alabama just came off a good victory on. In our second segment, we're going to look at our offensive and defensive standouts of the Texas A&M game and how their play affected the game. And finally, on our third segment, we're going to turn our attention to the Louisiana Lafayette Raging Cajuns that'll be coming into Bryant-Denny Stadium this coming Saturday and preview that game. The DC Capstone Report is featured each Tuesday morning on Tide 102.9, The Morning Blitz with Martin Houston. You can listen live at Tide1029.com. Well, great to see all our listeners back this week for another edition of the DC Capstone Report. As we start today in our first segment, we're going to review the Texas A&M game. Before I get started, I want to say a quick thank you out there to Lance Shores. You know, Lance does a great job in the studio producing the DC Capstone Report. And, this year he has really stepped up and done so well, taking the place of his brother Gary, who was my best friend who started this DC Capstone Report. It was his idea. Gary passed away unexpectedly this year, and Lance has come up and stepped in and did a great job in the studio producing this segment each week. And I just want to thank Lance. If you're a regular listener, you know that Lance has several other sites that we'd like to talk about here on the podcast, and one is freelancepictures.com. That's freelancepictures.com. I encourage all of our listeners to go and look at his pictures there. He has some great photos that he just posted up that we've sent out on our Facebook page about the Texas A&M game. Some great photos there. And he has some other great photos you can go look at. Just some amazing macro photography there. So check out freelancepictures.com. Also, another site we have is rolltidebama.com. rolltidebama.com for all information for Alabama sports. Lance always takes some great pictures and posts them up there. And one thing we've been able to do is focus this year on the $1 Million Band. Lance always is at the Elephant Stomp, getting the warm-ups and getting the band, and it's always great to see the band getting ready to play. And if you've watched any of our live reports from some of the games, either at home or away, where I've been able to attend, we've been able to feature the $1 Million Band live for our halftime shows and our pregame shows. So we get a lot of good feedback from that, and we appreciate our $1 Million Band fans out there that have come and liked our page on Facebook at the DC Capstone Report, or that kind of follow along on our podcast. So we really appreciate our listeners out there who follow our podcast. Check us out on the web, check us out at Facebook, or check us out some of these sites like freelancepictures.com or rolltidebama.com. So if you listen to our podcast and you like it, I would appreciate if you'd like our Facebook page. Go on and share it to your friends so that they can get an opportunity to listen to it as well. So a big thank you to Lance Shores and all the hard work that he does. When you hear me refer to Lance on the podcast, I'm referring to him. He's back in our studio doing the production of this. So let's go ahead and get right into the report today. Lance and I talked heading into last week's podcast when we did a preview of the Texas A&M game, and I had some ideas of what was going to take place. And when you look at this game, I think we were spot on in our analysis, not blowing our own horn, but just kind of looking at the trends of the things that were taking place in Alabama football at the time and also at Texas A&M. But, Jimbo Fisher brought in a good game plan to go against Alabama. I think it was by far Alabama's biggest test to date. I think Texas A&M performed well offensively and defensively, had a good game plan. If you remember on our podcast last week, I said that Alabama could have trouble with Kelly Mond. We need to make sure that we kept him in the pocket and put some pressure on him. At times he could give us some trouble. Well, I think the offensive production that Texas A&M had during this game revolved around Kelly Mond. And that was him being able to extend plays on third down to get first downs. And also he gashed us on a couple of plays. And we talked about that last week. Our defensive backs were going to have to stay with their men, and which would give him an opportunity if he could get past our front line, our front seven, our linebackers, and give him an opportunity for some big yardage. And he had a couple of those plays that he made some big yardage on. So I thought Texas A&M had a good game plan for Alabama coming in. But in football, momentum and home field advantage means a lot. And I believe the crowd at Bryant-Denny Stadium affected the game. And I believe it affected the game on the very first series. Texas A&M got the ball, and it was in the end of the stadium where the student section is. And that student section was loud and raucous. And on the first couple of plays, Alabama on the first play had a great defensive stop on Texas A&M's great running back, Travion Williams. Now, Travion Williams is a great running back. He's going to get a lot of yards this year when he runs against some other SEC opponents. But Alabama had an answer for him up the middle, and he only got loose for one play, and that was a missed blocking assignment around the left end. But on that first play of the game, Alabama's front four just really stopped him for no gain. Actually, even lost a yard. And I believe that really set the tone in that first series, and that got the fans into it, and they affected the game. And the way I affected the game is on the second play of the game, Kelly Mond is going to change the play at the line of scrimmage, trying to call the play at the line of scrimmage. He's got all that on his mind. He's trying to pick out the receivers in his mind that he's going to be open. He drops back and gets some immediate pressure up the middle. He's not ready for it, and then makes an errant throw to his tight end across the middle, and Mack Wilson makes a great play with a break on the ball and intercepts that play. To me, that was the fans affecting the game. So when Coach Saban is telling us to stay the whole game and to be into the game and to affect the game, that's what he's talking about. I think the fans affected that first play. And Mack Wilson made a great play. Our defense did well. And immediately the tone was set for the game. Texas A&M had the turnover, and Alabama comes out in the first play, and Tua hits Devontae Smith on a very similar play to the national championship game pattern. Gets right behind the safety and catches it was a great throw. It was even more unbelievable catch by Devontae Smith in the end zone. And we're up 7-0 before a few seconds tick off the clock. And that kind of set the tone for the game. I think Alabama played well on offense. I think it played well on defense. It wasn't perfect on offense. It wasn't perfect on defense. If you look at the offensive side of the ball, Tua Tagovailoa had a great game. Our passing game was just above, hitting on all cylinders, above any benchmark that I've seen for an Alabama passing offense in my lifetime. But he distributed the ball to 8 to 10 different receivers. He was getting backs out of the backfield. He was hitting wide receivers. He was a great day for the tight ends. And I just think that he was a good job in our passing game. Our running game, you might look at, well, that wasn't very well in the first half. But when you think about it, though, we were actually passing the ball more than we were running the ball. And I think a couple of times we got stuffed on the runs in the first half. Had to do with whether the Tua was able to read the defensive player and keep the ball instead of handing the ball off. A couple of times I thought he should have kept the ball, and I've said that over and over. I hope that improves going into some of our other games where we're going to have to make a quick read to either hand the ball off or keep the ball. But I think above everything else, Tua did a great job, and offense did a great job getting everybody involved in the passing game. And then later our running game, was able to come up a little bit, but it's probably one of the lowest rushing totals we've had in quite some time. But our passing game was superb all day long. On the defensive side of the ball, I think setting the tone early against Texas A&M, getting the big turnover, was really, really good. I think the defense played well. As I said earlier, the only time we got gashed was when Kelly Mond was making some great athletic plays, and he did that when our safeties were being led to the corners or to the pylons, and they had their backs to the play. He gained an extra 20 or 30 yards because of that. But I think that was a design play, some design runs, and him getting open like that was a surprise to no one because he's a great athlete and does a great job. He had some good passing plays, but our defensive backfield, who are young, and they tried to pick on our defensive backs again, but they stepped up to the challenge, and we got some interceptions, we got some pass breakups, and even blitzed our safety. Xavier McKinney blitzed and got a sack. But most of the pressure up front came from our defensive front seven, and Isaiah Buggs had a stellar game. Quinion Williams, Anthony Jennings, Again, I mentioned Xavier McKinney on his blitz, and Dylan Moses did a good job pressing the quarterback as well. So our defense, I think, overall played well. Now our special teams, that's another story. Our return game, I believe, is good. I think Josh Jacobs does a great job in that. I think the blocking as well. Jalen Waddle does a great job. I do think we had a breakdown again, had another penalty with a block in the back that cost us. And I'm not sure, it was a close call. I don't know if I would have been the referee, I'd throw the flag on that play. But, it was questionable, but it was called, and it was blocking the back. So, again, a penalty negates a special teams positive play. Our Joseph Bulovas did a great job on kicking. He had at the very end of the first half, had a great field goal there. I think 47-yarder. Glad he had come on in a short time, remaining on the clock in the first half, and knocked that field goal through. That gives him some confidence going in. But I think the downside of our return game, other than the penalties, has to be our punting. Now, I've heard Coach Saban's press conference today. He was talking about Skylar DeLong. He does how great he does in practice. But that great leg that you see in practice is just not translated into the game. And I don't know. I know he's a young man, so the way his mannerisms, the way he carried himself when he walked on and off the field, to me, and this is just my opinion, is the mannerisms of a young man who lacks confidence in the game. And I think he's feeling the pressure at a young, this time last year he's in high school. Nothing like the pressure he feels in an SEC contest against Texas A&M to try to boot the ball. And I think the added pressure upon him was that the Texas A&M's punter, on the other hand, he was booting 60 and 55-yard punts all day long, and with effortless. And I think Skylar DeLong just had his confidence level is low. He's going to need to pick that up, because we're going to need him down the stretch to be able to punt the ball and change the field position with our punts. And two, I think for 4 years we've been really spoiled by J.K. Scott. J.K. Scott is a phenomenal punter. He's punting for the Green Bay Packers, and now they're reaping the benefits of what we did for 4 years, and they're seeing the effect of him changing the field position for them by flipping the field with 60 and 63, 65-yard punts that he's been having in the pro. So we really miss J.K. Scott. I hope that Skylar DeLong can turn this around and maybe use this next game against Louisiana Lafayette to improve our kicking game. If we have to punt, improve our kicking game and punting, give him some confidence going into the later SEC matches. But overall, just reviewing the game against Texas A&M, I was pleased with the competitive spirit of the team, pleased with the toughness of the team, and thought overall we had a really good game plan. Again, Coach Loxley, I believe, called a great offensive game. We see the mark of Josh Gaddis on our wide receivers. They're just doing a great job. And in this game, I think we got to see the mark of Jeff Banks on our tight ends. I believe, Coach Saban said in his press conference leading up to this game that sometimes the tight end gets lost and they can have a big game. Well, in this game, we saw Irv Smith have a big game. He got lost a couple of times over the middle, and Tua hit him in stride. He had a great run after the catch. But also we saw Hale Hinges step up. Hale is thought of as our blocking tight end, but he can actually catch the ball. After having a drop early in the game, he came back in the second quarter with 2 touchdowns. And when's the last time a tight end had 2 touchdowns in an Alabama game? I think you go all the way back to O.J. Howard in the national championship game against Clemson, where we won. And before that, maybe you go back to Ozzie Newsome. But Hale Hinges did a great job of getting open on those 2 pass plays. Tua put it right on the money, and he was able to catch those 2 plays for the touchdown. So I think, again, you're seeing Jeff Banks, one of the new coaches, his stamp on the tight ends. You're seeing Josh Gaddis, his stamp on the wide receivers. So it looks like to me that Coach Loxley has a real good offensive game plan with these new coaches are helping him develop these players, and we're seeing it translate on the field on Saturday. So overall review of the Texas A&M game was, I think it went well. I think that we played well. I didn't get that 50-point mark that I said we would, but we got close. And I think sometimes Coach Saban, substitutes on offense and doesn't try to keep your starters in there to score as many points as you can when he's going against some coaches that coach for him. I think he did that in this game. Now, Coach Jimbo Fisher played into the last whistle, called timeouts trying to score, but we did keep our defense on the field, first-team defense to some extent, playing late in the game this time, so he didn't get as many subs in on defense. But overall, a great game for the Alabama. another victory, and we move on in this season to the next game that we'll highlight in our third segment coming up.
You have been listening to the DC Capstone Report. The DC Capstone Report is brought to you each time this week by RollTideBama.com and FreelancePitchers.com.
Well, in our second segment, we're going to take a look at our standouts of the game and how they affected the game in the Texas A&M game. First, we'll look on offense. Well, you don't have to go far on offense except the quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. I think Tua did such a great job in this game. Had probably his best game ever as a player for Alabama. I know we love the national championship game, and he did a great job in that game, but this was probably his best, put-together game, all-around game. He had his highest passing yardage and great reading of the use of all of his weapons on offense. And I think he's been recognized as the SEC, one of the offensive players of the game, and I think his play on the field was superb. I look for him to continue to get better. I know it's scary to think about he can get better, but I think he can get better. I think he has some room to improve on reading the defenses, on when to give the ball to the running back, when to keep it himself, or when to throw the pass off the RPO. So I think he can get better, and as he gets better, that's even more scarier for the defenses out there in the SEC games that we have to come. So Tua did a great job on offense. Another one of our standouts on offense that I want to point out is Henry Ruggs III. I think we've all become enamored with Jalen Waddle and his speed, and I think we should be. He is great freshman. But, Henry Ruggs III and his speed is no slouch. And I saw him on special teams use his speed to get down on a punt that Skylar DeLong did kick, one of those short punts that was able to drop right at the 1 yard line. Henry Ruggs III used his speed to get down and flip that field to put Texas A&M on the 1 yard line. Now, this is one of those times in that series where we got gashed and we gave up that field position, but Ruggs did his job and used his speed to get down the field. Later in the game, in the second half, on a little jet sweep, that jet sweep that Lane Kiffin loved so well that we kept in our repertoire on offense. Henry Ruggs coming around that left side of the Alabama line there did a great job of extending that play all the way for a touchdown. So his speed is just as good, I think, as Jalen Waddle, and does a great job. So I like another standout there to Henry Ruggs III on offense. And my final standout on offense, it was a close call. I wanted to pick between two players. One was Harold Hinges, who I thought had a great game, and probably any other game I would have given him a standout. And I still think he did a great job as a tight end, catching 2 touchdown passes in the game. But my other standout has to go to this Texas A&M game to Josh Jacobs. I think that Josh Jacobs at running back doesn't get enough credit for what he does on every play. He comes in and out of the backfield. He is a weapon out of the backfield on catching the ball. And I think he did a great job in this game catching the ball out of the backfield. He did a good job running the ball. But, in this game, what I want to highlight him is his blocking. He blocked so well on numerous plays, protecting Tua. Tua didn't get sacked one time in this game. He was pressured but not sacked one time. And Josh Jacobs did a good job of picking up the blitzers and rushers a couple of times to keep that from happening. But the one play I want to highlight is the one I talked about earlier about Henry Ruggs taking that jet sweep to the left. The lead blocker on that play, and I wish our listeners out there would go back and watch that again. The lead blocker on that play is Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs gives an effort there that I think is just a competitive effort. It's a toughness effort. He doesn't have the ball in his hand, but he makes that play work by his blocking. He comes off the line of scrimmage and nudges a player right off the line, slow him up. Then he gets a block on the lineman or linebacker coming down the line that stops him, and then just knocks the star back or the safety off his feet as Henry Ruggs blows by and scores a touchdown. I think he's stopping at least 3 players on that one play, and he never quits. He keeps his blocking. He rubs that first player, blocks the second player, and then completely demolishes the third player. So watch that play back. I give Josh Jacobs a standout player on offense because of his catching out of the backfield and because of his great blocking. Well, on defense, I think off the top, Isaiah Buggs had his best game as a defensive player. And I look forward seeing him play more, and I think he did a great job. He pressured the quarterbacks, had 3.5 sacks, tackles for loss. So I was just so pleased with him. Him along with Quinton Williams and Raekwon Davis is going to be super scary as we're going into the rest of our schedule. The next player on defense is super standout this week was Dylan Moses. I think Dylan has come a long way. He pressured the quarterback. He did some great plays on coverages of their great running back Travion Williams out of the backfield on pass plays. Thought he did a really good job doing that, and he did a great job stopping the run. He was injured a little bit when he hit the wall there in the end zone on play, but he came back from that and looks like he's going to be good going into this next game. And finally on defense, we got to talk about a super freshman, that 5-star Patrick Surtain the second, junior, Patrick Surtain Jr. He starts in this game at cornerback. He's tested. He plays well, defends the ball well, and then leading into halftime with an opportunity for Texas A&M to try to go down and get a big momentum score going into half, he picks the ball off. He tracks it down, makes a great catch and a great return to set up Alabama in position to get a field goal going into halftime, which I thought was a big momentum changer. So Patrick Surtain is my third defensive player of the game. Well, Lance, we come to this final segment of our podcast today, and we look forward to the game that we're going to have this week against Louisiana Lafayette. The Raging Cajuns are coming to town. It's going to be an early game. It's going to be an 11 o'clock game, so our fans are going to have to show up early and get there and hope that they're awake to affect this game. A lot of folks look at a team like Louisiana Lafayette coming in out of the Sun Belt as a pushover win. I don't think there's ever a pushover win in any of the games that you're going up against these days. If you don't think that's true, look to last week to the Oklahoma Army game where it was going to be a pushover, and Army took them to overtime and almost beat Oklahoma in overtime. But other teams, Mississippi State waltzed into Kentucky thinking they were going to just beat Kentucky, and Kentucky beats them 28-7. Had a chance to make it 35-7, but they kneeled on the ball at the 1 yard line against Mississippi State. So there's some teams this week has made thought they had a pushover game and ended up not being a pushover. So I think Alabama will be ready. It's a chance to get better every week. And another good thing about this is another Nick Saban disciple. So coaching the Raging Cajuns is Billy Napier. He's gone in there taking some coaches from Alabama. He's taking some offensive analysts, defensive analysts from Alabama. He's trying to put in that process that Nick Saban started here, and he's in the early stages of doing that. So I think the Raging Cajuns are going to have a good team going forward. They've had a couple of games already played this year. Had a big blowout win over Grambling State, and then they lost in a blowout loss to Mississippi State. And then last week in their first Sun Belt game, they lost a close one to Coastal Carolina. So they're 1-2 coming in. I think Alabama is going to have to play their game. They're going to look to get better themselves on every play, not worry who their opponent is, come in and improve. I think in this game, our strengths will be our passing, of course. I think we'll be able to run the ball. And I look for Alabama to try to improve on the lack of penalties, try to improve on turnovers. I don't believe we've effectively pulled the ball out and caused fumbles like we did in years past. So I think our defense has something to improve on that. Continue to do well in our interceptions and our passes. And if we get a chance to punt the ball, please, in this game, punt the ball with some effective confidence in our punting game. But I really believe Alabama goes into this game and shows up. I don't think the early start is going to cause a problem for any hangover for Alabama. And I think Alabama comes up in this game, we get back into the high digits. So look for Alabama to win this game 63-7.
You have been listening to the DC Capstone Report. The DC Capstone Report is brought to you each time this week by RollTideBama.com and FreelancePictures.com. Be sure to go online and check us out on DCCapstoneReport.com for future updates.